Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 88, and for this one, I head out to Midland, Texas. I play a $5 on the button meetup game with Andrew Nemi, and we go to Kojak's Poker Club. The pots get pretty big, and the hands get pretty wild out there, so I think you guys are going to enjoy it. But before we get started, I've got a few big announcements to make. The first one is that we've crossed the 100,000 subscriber mark, which is a huge milestone for me. So thanks a lot for everybody who's watched and everybody who's subscribed. When I first started doing this, I didn't really think that people were going to tune in. And as it kind of started growing and getting momentum, I just thought that getting to the 100,000 subscriber mark would be a really cool goal to have. And it was pretty much the only goal that I had. So here we are 2.5 years later. And I just want to say thanks, and that I really appreciate you guys sticking around through the good times and the bad times. This has been a special period of my life. I'm happy to share it with you, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. Also, big thanks to everybody who voted for me in the Global Poker Awards People's Choice. I made it to the final four. It's the last round of voting, so I'll have a link down below in the description box. It's pretty awesome just to be nominated, but it'd be super cool to take this thing home. I've got some funny things that I want to say, so yeah, click on the link down below in the description box. Vote for me one final time, and maybe we can win it. I mentioned in the last video that if you guys continue to show some support, that I'd be happy to put out more content, and that's what I'm doing. This is the third video in the last 7 days, so I'm doing this to just show appreciation for everything that you guys have done, and I'm pumped up to make these videos. All right, hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's go ahead and get started. It's early in the morning in Las Vegas. I catch my flight out to Midland, Texas, which is on the west side. Flying in, you can see all the oil fields. That's what it's pretty much known for. A lot of people warn me, saying there's nothing to do here. I don't find that to be true at all. If anything, there may be too much to do and too much to see. It's kind of a sensory overload. I'm staying in the downtown area, right next to the Wall Street. Unfortunately, I couldn't find that damn bowl anywhere. After searching for hours, I built up an appetite. Andrew sends me some recommendations of places to go, with one being the Sky Lounge. It's actually located on the 3rd floor of our hotel. I can see it from my room. Sky Lounges tend to have slightly lower altitudes here than in Las Vegas. In all seriousness, Midland is an underrated city with plenty of cool things about it. The weather's beautiful, so Andrew and I want to be outside, and we go see some of the sports facilities nearby. We find this cat. I like cats. Then for dinner, we go to this pretty amazing taco joint with a plethora of delicious options. At night, we check out the beer garden, which is one of the highlights of the trip. They have tons of beers on draft, some people singing karaoke, and it's a fun spot to hang out and mingle with the locals. There's definitely a charm to this area, and there are lots of extremely nice people. The next day, we head out to Kojak's for a meetup game. I get some B-roll.
Mind a shot? Sorry about that.
It's okay. The place fills up. We get 6 tables of $5 on the button going, so there's no blinds. The button puts out $5, and the action starts where the small blind would ordinarily be. It's cool to have this many people, but I don't know if they're there to play with us, or if they're there because Kojak's has free ice cream for everyone. I guess we'll never know. All I know is that there's a picture of a couple of handsome dudes on this wall. I buy into the game for $1,000, and we get started. For simplicity's sake, I'm gonna use the standard positions when I talk about the action, so the first player to act is the small blind, but there are actually no blinds. I pick up pocket 8s from the big blind, the small blind limps in for 5, I raise to 20. The button calls, the small blind folds, it's heads up, the flop is Jack 7-7, not a bad flop for 8s without having hit a set. Could very well have the best hand, and I want to deny equity from hands containing 2 overs, so I bet 25. The button calls, the turn is a 5, I check, the button bets 25. Not folding for this amount, I call, but I suspect I may be beat. The river is a queen, I check, the button checks back, so I'm about to show my hand, the opponent turns over pocket 10s to win it.
Hands are good. Nice hand.
Right away we're stuck, then we run cold for a long time without having any exciting hands to show. There's not much I can do other than try to stay patient and watch people at my table take shots of Fireball, which isn't my favorite. But okay, I'll have one too. 2 hours into it here, and 2 hours into it, and we are not doing great. We're down $200, but I actually haven't won a pot so far. Just run super cold, and it's not fun, but there's nothing I can really do. I just have to stay patient, and that's about it. All right, so I'm gonna get back to the game. After adding on for another 200 and switching tables, I finally take down my first pot of the night, which has $30 in it. The table erupts in applause.
Oh, baby, yeah. There you go.
Next, I pick up ace-7 of hearts, under the gun +2, under the gun min raises to 10. I call, a player in middle position calls, and the button calls. We go 4 ways to the flop, comes 9-8-5 with 2 spades and 1 heart. We've got a gut shot straight draw, 1 over, and a backdoor flush draw. The under the gun player leads for 30. Flatting is probably the most reasonable option. It's not too much. The player opened pre-flop from early position and is betting into 3 players on the flop, so his story is consistent that he's strong. In my head, this is a better flop for my pre-flop calling range than it is for his pre-flop opening range. I want to give myself an opportunity to win this on the flop rather than calling and trying to hit. So I put in a raise to 105. Middle position player and the button both fold. The pre-flop raiser considers his options and rips it in for 450 total. This is the worst. I have to let it go, and I don't give myself a chance to realize my equity. The opponent shows pocket kings. I tried to force it. Had I been playing my best, perhaps I would have taken a different line. Tough to do when you're not dragging in many pots though. Later I pick up ace-queen offsuit middle position, the small blind limps in, under the gun limps in, I raise to 25. The hijack, cutoff, button, small blind, and under the gun player all call. The flop comes ace-8-7, all clubs, checks to me, so many other opponents, top pair, and no club. This isn't that great of a hand. I want to keep this pot small. I check, and the players behind me check. The turn is the deuce of hearts, checks to me again. One of the players behind me had me beat. I believe they'd have bet flop, and the players in front of me have all checked twice, so I feel confident betting to try and deny equity from anyone holding a club. I bet 75. I'm happy because all the players fold. We win it. Some players asked to rabbit hunt, and the river would have been the 8 of spades. The pot is pushed towards us. Feels good to win a raised pot. It's time for a couple of ducks. The big blind limps in. I raise to 25 from under the gun +2. The player on my left calls. The big blind also calls. 3 of us are seeing the flop. The dealer puts out queen 7 deuce, earning herself an invitation to my next birthday. The big blind checks. I bet 35. The middle position player calls. He's in for a world of hurt. The big blind folds. It's heads up. I'm hoping to fade a diamond. We do. The turn is the 6 of clubs. I bet 100. People don't like folding in Texas. I should get calls from a flush draw or top pair, which are likely holdings. The player calls again. The river is the 5 of clubs, so the backdoor flush gets there, but the front door flush misses. I fire for 275. I'm looking to win the maximum, but the opponent folds right away, probably had diamonds, and didn't make his hand. We're only down small when the table decides to play a bomb pot. Each player puts in 15 pre-flop, and we go straight to the flop without any other action. I pick up ace-jack offsuit from under the gun. The flop comes ace-king-9 rainbow, checks to me. I'm going to take my shot. I bet 80. Everyone folds, and for the first time today, we're in the black. In this one, we've got ace-queen offsuit middle position, the small blind straddles for 10, the big blind flats, under the gun +1 calls. I raise to 55. The small blind calls for 45 more, the big blind calls, and under the gun +1 folds. 3 of us see the flop. It's ace-queen 5 with 2 spades. We've got top 2 and multiple opponents. What a dream. The players check to me. I put out a bet of 70. Small blind snap calls. He's a loose player who I've noticed doesn't like to give up. The big blind folds. The turn's the 8 of diamonds. The opponent checks. With lots of draws out there and a player who doesn't fold easily, I want to bet fairly large. I put out 180. Turns out the opponent is in fact a quitter and doesn't want to give me any more money. He lays his hand down. We rake in another pot. Next, I'm dealt ace-king offsuit on the button. 2 players limp in and the hijack raises to 30. The cutoff calls. I put in the tray bet to 160. Folds to the hijack and he flats, leaving himself with 340. The cutoff folds, so it's heads up. The flop comes jack 9-8 with 2 spades. The player checks. This isn't a great flop when I'm up against somebody's opening and 3-bet calling range. He's going to have a lot of hands like 10s, jacks, or queens. Betting here as a bluff is not going to get the job done very often. I check back. The turn is the 10 of spades. The player checks. I pick up a flush draw, but again, this card connects well with what I put my opponent on, so I take another free card. The river is the ace of hearts. The hijack checks for a 3rd time. I've got a hand with some value, but I don't know what I can get called by that's worse. I check back. The opponent turns over pocket kings, which I was surprised to see since he didn't 4-bet me pre-flop. He started the hand with less than 100 big blinds. He's one of the only holdings that I beat, and now my stack's at a healthy 1,700. I'm in for 12, so I'm up 500 after getting started at a turtle's pace. Earlier in the night, Andrew and I signed a picture that was raffled off. Unfortunately, someone who is not a fan won it. This kid named Christian purchases it from the raffle winner. It was an investment. He's playing with 3 to a hand now, and no one's saying a damn thing. He's totally getting away with it. Back on the felt, I'm at my 5th table of the night. I pick up ace-king suited on the button. The small blind straddles for 10. The big blind calls. A middle position player limps in. I raise to 50. Small blind folds, then the big blind gives his cards to the dealer, and as he does, I think I see one of his cards flash, but I'm not exactly certain what it is. The middle position player calls the 50. I'm torn whether or not to speak up on what I believe I saw. I end up doing what I think is the right thing. I think I saw you. Did you have the ace of hearts, sir? Did you have a red ace?
I did have a red ace.
So red ace exposed.
Good karma.
Good karma it is, because the flop comes ace queen 5 with 2 clubs. We've got top, and the nut flush draw. The world is our oyster. The opponent checks with 3 aces accounted for and lots of clubs accounted for too. I don't know what I can get called by. Also, there aren't really any turn cards that I'm concerned about seeing. Plus, I'm in position, so I do a sneaky check back. The turn is the 7 of clubs. We've got the nuts. The player checks. It's time to build up this pot. I bet 60. I'm expecting the opponent to fold. That's not what happens. He's full of surprises. He calls. I don't really know what he has. The river is the deuce of clubs. It's one more than I needed. Please take 1 club back, dealer. We don't get anything special for a 6-card flush. The player checks. Not sure how I'm going to get paid, so I might as well try to make it look like I'm bluffing, and I fire for 150. Maybe the middle position player can have like the jack high flush. We get some good news. He surprisingly snap calls.
This is pretty good karma.
We win a nice pot, and our stack is at nearly 2,000. Here I'm dealt ace jack of hearts in the small blind. I'm first to act, and I open to 20. 4 players call because no one folds ever. There's tons of action. The flop comes jack 9-3 rainbow with 1 heart. We've got top with the backdoor flush draw. We're up against tons of players. I make it 60 so that we can narrow down the field. We narrow it down to 0 opponents and win it. Time to go to the final table of the night, where I meet a local player named Basil. He's a big jolly dude who apparently got attacked by a bunch of highlighters. In my last hand, I pick up queen jack offsuit on the button, so I have to post 5. The small blind straddles for 10. Under the gun calls, the cutoff calls. I call for 5 more, and the small blind checks. 4 of us see the flop. It's 9-8-4 rainbow. It checks to me with 2 overs and a gutter. I'm okay betting as a semi-bluff. I should have lots of equity. I put out 25. We can't even get through 1 player. The small blind calls. He doesn't like to fold, and he's been running good too, so he has a big stack. Everyone else calls as well. There are still 4 of us involved. The turn is an ace. It checks to me. This time I check back. The river is a jack. We make second pair. Some straights do get there, and there are lots of 2-pair hands that make sense that could potentially be beating us. Small blind leads for 100. It folds to me. I've seen him bet a lot without getting to showdown, so I feel like he has to be bluffing at least some of these times. I call the C. Of course, in this instance, he's not bluffing. He turns over 8-4 of hearts. He flopped 2-pair and takes me to Value Town before I wrap up what's an otherwise good session. It's a little after 1, calling it a night. Ended up winning 670. Been running really well, especially on video. I haven't really been playing too many sessions that aren't on video, but it's been nice. I started out the year stuck like right away, and then I've gone on like a 10 to 12K upswing or something. There was one session that I played the other night that I didn't video. Andrew and I were hanging out. We don't really hang out outside of these meetup games too often, so we were drinking, we were playing some 3-card poker. I lost $200 in that, I believe, and then we went over to Caesars, and by that time I was feeling a pretty good buzz. Andrew convinced me to play some PLO, tried to bluff him, didn't work out, so I lost like $850 in that PLO game, but yeah, tonight was good. It was my first session playing since then, and things have been going well so far, overall. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons because it helps out the channel a ton. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'm happy to get back to you. I want to give a big thanks to Kojax Poker Club for having us out there. That was a lot of fun. People were sort of surprised that we were willing to go to a small town, but what ended up happening is that viewer mentioned to the owner of the club that they should have us out there, and so they reached out to us, and we were happy to do it. It ended up being a really good time, but the point is, tell your local poker room managers that you want us to come out there, and we'll do a meetup game, and we're pretty much happy to go anywhere. There's no place that's too big or too small. Thanks to everybody who showed up, and I really appreciate you guys subscribing and voting for me in the Global Poker Awards. Please do that if you haven't done so yet. It's the last round, and if I win it, I promise that the speech will be good. So do that, and I'll get content out as soon as I can too, as a bonus. The next meetup game is going to be at Hollywood Park Casino. It's our first one in the Southern California area. It's going to be April 6th through the 8th. I'll have some more information in the description box down below. And then I'm going to Running Up Reno, April 12th through the 20th. So I hope to see you guys out there for that. That's always a really good time. And we're doing an official meetup game, I believe April 15th on a Monday. So I'll have some information regarding that in the description box too. And there will be a hotel promo code that you can use to get a discount on it. It's at the Pepper Mill in Reno. All right, hope you're all doing well. Good luck with the tables, and I'll see you next time.